Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Talks at Google. My name is Scott Provenzano, and I am so excited to be moderating our talk today with Laura and Vanessa Marano. As a bit of an introduction, these sisters have been in Hollywood since childhood, with projects ranging from the Disney Channel to Freeform to now Netflix. And personally, I'm really excited to ask them more about all of these projects. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Laura and Vanessa. Hey, Laura. Hey, Vanessa.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you two?
Good. Just living the life indoors.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for joining us. I have so many questions. So can we just jump right into it?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. So to begin, you both have so much experience in the entertainment industry, like 17 years of experience. So can you begin by telling us about what it's been like growing up in Hollywood and seeing the different stages from being child actresses to teens to now adults?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just saying because it's crazy. It's actually will be 20 years, I think, in January since we started acting, which is bananas.
We've been doing it for well over half of our life.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's like you started when you were born then, if it was 20 years ago.
No, I was 8 and Laura was 5 when we started professionally. And I think that transition too is like, you're a kid, and especially when you're that young, it's all about fun, right? And we were lucky that our parents never put pressure on us. And it really was like, I didn't get the concept that the audition wasn't the job, because I was so young, right? I didn't think that there was like a next step after that until eventually there started being a next step after that if I booked something. And then I think as you transition into a teenager, it's very interesting as a young woman because all of a sudden the characters that you start playing can be sexualized, cannot be sexualized, across the board require crying. I had to learn how to cry on cue literally when I turned into a teenager because every single role required that. And I think as Laura and I grew in the industry, we knew that we wanted to get more involved into the creative process and the producing process to kind of break those molds of teenage characters and eventually now young adult women characters to really show a full scope of what women can be.
Yeah, 100%. Beautifully said, Vanessa.
There you go.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the only other thing I wanted to add is something that's also kind of interesting when you grow up in the business is when you do get into that teenage years for a lot of reasons, some of that Vanessa already mentioned, but also with schooling. For Vanessa and I, for most teenage girls and maybe some teenage boys as well, there's a level if you aren't able to work adult hours, meaning if you haven't graduated early, then it's really, really tough to find a job. Vanessa and I both kind of had different paths when it came to that. Vanessa, was homeschooled and then also graduated early, like actually way earlier than other people. She's pretty ridiculously smart. And then
I didn't really have anything to do with that. Definitely found a shady loophole and able to do that. College, so it's all fine. It balanced out.
For me, though, I was really lucky because I got Austin and Ally right around that time when I was 15. I already lost out on a few jobs because I wasn't able to work adult hours like as an 18-year-old. But Austin and Ally was this amazing opportunity for so many reasons, but also allowing me to continue to do my school. So I was able to do all of high school up until I was 18. And I was so incredibly thankful for that because I know a lot of actors and actresses aren't able to get that opportunity for job reasons.
That's so interesting. I never knew that you could not maybe take a job because you're not a certain age for those working hour reasons. So I think that's really interesting for people who aren't in Hollywood to know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It has to do with just, for us, Vanessa and I, who are now kind of transitioning into producing as well, you do understand it from a production level. It's easier when you have actors that can work as many hours as you want them to work.
We
But
have what's called child labor laws, which is to protect children, and they're important and they're good. There are, like I said, a lot of loopholes, whether you're getting emancipated or if you have your high school diploma, that allow you to work adult hours. And it is really crazy because when you are working adult hours and going to school simultaneously, it's a lot. But I wouldn't have traded what I did for anything in the world. I think it gave me a really unique, unorthodox educational experience, but one that I'm proud of.
I love that. And overall, those years then of working through that, what have been each of your favorite projects to work on?
Wow. I don't know if there's just one favorite one. Obviously, Switched at Birth. It just holds such a special place in my heart. Because it was my show. It was the first time I got to be like a leading character on a successful TV show, and also the people on it were just so amazing. I love that cast and crew so much. I made lifelong friends. But another project that really sticks out in my mind that I absolutely adored working on was something called The Brooke Ellison Story, which was Christopher Reeve's last project. He directed it. And I got a chance to play a quadriplegic with the same injury as Chris. And he really walked me through the process of getting injured and going to rehab. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience. And it was a project that was really about, a story that needed to be told. And I think that informed the stories that I know we're all attracted to as producers within my family. I got very involved with the Christopher and Dana Reeve project because of that project. And when we did Saving Zoe, another favorite project, because we actually got to produce that one and create it from the ground up, we knew we wanted there to be a charitable component, as well as like a human component and an impact for society, which is why we teamed up with Equality Now.
Yeah, I agree with Vanessa. It's so hard to pick a favorite project. It's like all of these projects have made up the little organ that I call my heart. No, but all these projects have made up me of who I am today as both a human being and as an actress as well. So obviously Austin Alley means the absolute world to me. Much like Vanessa, it was the first time I was a lead character. And it was truly such an amazing experience for a multitude of reasons. The platform, the cast, the crew, the fan base, the content, like everything kind of connected to that show just makes me so incredibly happy, even thinking about it right now. Saving Zoe, of course, as well, for a lot of different reasons, or rather it's a very different project. It was something that was a first for me and for Vanessa as well. It's our first kind of producing a job, producing opportunity. And that was so incredible, so hard, so challenging, so a lot of things, but so incredible to be part of creating that creative vision. I will always just cry internally in the best way possible thinking of that project. But I guess one more project to say, there's so many, it's really hard to pick, but I think one that was vital to me in a lot of ways, even of who I am and what I think you can do as an actress and what you can do just as like a female industry as well, is working on the Sarah Silverman program. I worked on that when I was in 4th grade. And not only was it so much fun and something that my friends really couldn't watch in 4th grade, I could barely watch, but seeing Sarah just in this like amazing, like badass position of, she was lead actress, but she was like producer, she was like calling the shots, she was like a part of every moment and creating that creative vision. And she was just also the epitome of loveliness. Like everyone loved her. Everyone was wanting to work as hard as we possibly can and help create that vision that she wanted to have and create. So that was a really incredible project to be a part of.
And that project came up again because of sisters in the industry, because I was working on a show called The Comeback with Laura Silverman, Sarah's sister, and they were looking for a young Sarah on the Sarah Silverman program. And Laura Silverman had met Laura, my sister Laura, and absolutely loved her, and they like connected right away. And she was like, "Oh, you kind of remind me of my older sister. Let's make this happen."
The best.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And it actually touches on one of my questions I was going to ask you of what's it like having a sibling in Hollywood? Because to me, that seems pretty rare, but I guess in your experience, maybe it's not that rare.
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think for us, obviously there's a lot of things involving when you have a sibling in Hollywood, but the most important thing, the thing that stands out is there's only one person in the world who truly understands my experience as an actress and my experience as being in my family, and that's Vanessa. We like just could call each other if we were like, oh my God, had the weirdest audition happen, or had a really weird day at work, or had the best day at work. You know, any of these things, we just completely could relate to each other. And it still is one of my favorite things that I have in this business.
I completely agree. I don't know what I would actually do if Laura wasn't in this industry with me, because it is such a crazy industry, and it's really awesome to have like a teammate. And it also, you know, it can kind of be a vapid industry. And so it's really great for it to be not just about you, right? For you to enjoy your sibling's success, to have your sibling root you on and enjoy your success. When you fail, you know that there's someone there for you. When they fail, you can be there for them, but ultimately you're connected by the fact that like, okay, we're going to fail and we're going to pick each other back up again. It's not just about me.
Yeah. And you have somebody who genuinely understands you to the core. That's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any funny stories about one another from the industry?
Oh, funny stories. I'm sure there's a ton.
Vanessa would sometimes come on Austin Alley because I was in a weird stage, right? I was 15, 16. So I'm an older teen, but I am, you know, under 18. I'm still a minor. I would need someone on set with me, or I'd like to have someone on set with me. And so if my parents couldn't make it, Vanessa would sometimes come, which was kind of bananas because Vanessa had her own show that she was working on, but it somehow would sometimes work out. And
it would be me and the stage parents.
And there's just some amazing moments. I just remember Vanessa being there and just like being awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, like, again, that stage mom thing that we both had to do for each other, like that just happened when we did promotion for This Is the Year, right? We're in COVID time. You're doing your own hair and makeup, trying to do everything safe. And since Laura and I were like quarantined together at this point, we weren't for a while, but we finally moved into that direction. I like brought her on as like my touch-up person, so she was like powdering me while we were checking the wardrobe,
scenes, photos. I was doing it
a
all.
Woman of many talents. I love it. Well, speaking of COVID, then that also leads to another question I had, because I'm so curious. What is Hollywood like now, given the pandemic? Because it's kind of changed everything for everyone. We're doing a virtual talk right now. We would normally do this in a Google office. What's Hollywood like on set, other than having your sister do your wardrobe and makeup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like this. In the few moments that I have actually been filmed, there are a bunch of protocols that people have to obtain by. I recently did ADR, and that was the weirdest thing in the entire world because I had to do it from my house. And I had to figure out how to like cushion the room so that there wasn't any sound. So I like built a fort of pillows and like put it on the floor. It's never looked more janky like ever in anything that I've ever had to do. And I've done a lot of independent films, so I've been in a lot of janky situations. But I know Laura has been filming a lot more than I have, and I think even has crazier situations than that.
Yeah, I mean, in some capacities, both Vanessa and I haven't, you know, a lot of people are getting back to work right now. And so Vanessa and I haven't totally experienced what that is like. I know a bunch of friends who are experiencing right now, same as so does Vanessa. You know, I shiver at thinking of like having to do the nose COVID test like 3 times a week, which is what people have to do right now. I totally understand it. I just have a deviated septum and like sinus issues, so that just freaks me out. But I'm all for, like, I've done the mouth test a bunch. When I filmed something, I did something for Radio Disney, the Radio Disney Awards-esque summer playlist thing. That was outside, and that was the first thing I filmed that involved like COVID protocols kind of in the beginning. Like, we had COVID people there. They took your temperature beforehand. We were 6 feet apart. People were in masks and face shields. So it's definitely it's definitely a strange experience, but I think everyone's in the same boat under this idea of we just want to work. So as long as we know that and we're all in this together, let's be safe. Let's follow all the protocols possible and kind of just go from there.
And actually, kudos to a lot of the different platforms and distributors and studios and production companies that have to now shell out extra money to keep everybody safe. Some are doing a great job, but other ones are really actually taking it very seriously and putting the safety of everyone who's working on the production at the top of their tier. So that's great because it starts from the top in order to keep everyone safe.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, hats off to all the volunteers who are helping to make everything better and even work. I mean, it's great that you all can work during this time because like you said, everyone just wants to get back to doing things as normal as possible. So that's really great to hear that you're finding ways.
We took a big hit in the film and television industry, but it's not even close to the hit that the theater community has taken, which pains me so much because I love theater and the fact that that community is suffering so much right now. It really, really puts a lot of things into perspective about how lucky we are to be in situations where we can work right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that, hopefully theaters can adjust and do like what Hamilton did and bring it to some sort of streaming platform. Well, it's definitely not the same feel. Hopefully there's gonna be ways to figure it out. Because I love going to a live play. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
The best.
Speaking of changes, I'm also curious. I mean, since Google is a technology company, I really want to ask, have you seen any changes in technology impact Hollywood over the 20 plus years that you've been in the industry?
Yeah. I mean, social media has completely changed this industry. The ability to stream has completely changed this industry. I mean, Netflix, YouTube, Google as well, Apple, like those are all now power players in the distribution space. And it's definitely changed what people expect their level of content to be. We used to run off of, in television at least, ads fund television. And now it's like, oh, well, I can just kind of like buying a ticket to a play. I can just subscribe to the place where I know the content is that I want, and I don't necessarily have to watch ads, which is it's a double-edged sword, right? Because they're two industries that were fueling each other for so long, and now the consumer is kind of dictating how they want their content to be.
Yeah, I also think it's funny because it's changed in so many ways, but and with some perspectives, right? There was a period of time when like teenage or young adult rom-coms or movies pertaining to like teenagers and young adults, like they weren't doing well at, movie theaters, right? And so there was this kind of myth that, oh, well, there isn't a demand for this kind of movie. And that kind of really affected those types of movies from coming out. And then you have something like Netflix, just understanding that there is still a demand for that. But, we're in a different world. Teenagers don't get jobs like they did back in the day. They don't necessarily have money. Young adults don't have the same money or using in the same way that they did, decades and decades ago, but there's still a demand. And so now being able to have a place to have those rom-coms or teenage stories or young adult stories, it was very obvious that there was a demand, and they did so incredibly well and are continuing to do so incredibly well on streaming platforms like Netflix. And I think that has been something that's kind of interesting as well, is realizing there is demand for all these different genres and these different types of movies or TV shows, but figuring out the best way to connect with your demographic is key. And that's sometimes not super easy of figuring out, but once you kind of tap into it, you can see what the demand is like for certain genres and whatnot.
That's so interesting. It almost sounds like there were so many barriers up beforehand, but now that there are so many different platforms, like you mentioned, it's just making it so much more easy for people to get their content out there and see that, yeah, there is demand for whatever type of film it is.
Totally.
Did you both have role models growing up that helped develop who you are today, both inside and outside of Hollywood?
I mean, I think our mother and our grandmothers were tremendous influences in our lives as far as strong females go. Our mom is a superhero and a superwoman, and is incredibly smart and incredibly driven and incredibly passionate. And her mother, my grandmother, was grew up in a time period where women were either, nurses, secretaries, or teachers, or just stay-at-home moms. And she got her master's in nursing. She wrote a book that is still used at the UCLA nursing school. She was a pioneer of her time. My grandmother on my father's side was an Italian immigrant who wasn't really educated and had 8 kids and ran her own store, took care of the household, figured everything out, gave her kids a better life. Also an incredibly strong, powerful female for her time period. So Laura and I had a tremendous amount of people within our own family to look up to, which I'm so grateful for.
I love that. And we both have that Italian connection. I'm also Italian, understand what that's like, so I feel you.
By the way, everyone's a little Italian.
That's so true.
They get around.
And then what's it been like since, okay, you have these role models when you're growing up, but now as you two have gotten older, there's absolutely children, youth, a bunch of people who look up to you as role models. What's that switch like? And you kind of touched on this a little bit talking about your work, but would love to hear being the actual role model now. What's that feel like?
It's wild. It's crazy. I feel so grateful for it. I feel so grateful that people look to us and, are inspired by different things that we're doing. I also feel like intimidated by it. I'm like, oh man, that's a lot of pressure sometimes. That's a lot to kind of take in. But I, at the end of the day, feel the best thing that I can do is, as cheesy as it sounds, be myself, be my absolute genuine, authentic self. And hopefully inspire people to be their genuine, authentic selves as well. And I hope that is something that comes from that. But it is wild. It's kind of crazy to have people look up to you or say that they look up to you and say that you're the role model. It means a lot.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things too that I think is important is, as much good as you do as a role model and as purposefully as you try to be the best version of yourself, is still know that you got a ton of flaws. I mean, we're flawed people, and role models are flawed, and that's okay. And I think that's important for anyone who does look up to me or Laura to know that, like, it's okay to be flawed. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not about your failures or the things that you do wrong. It's about you do the best you can, and when you know better, you continue to do better. And that's something that I try to live by, because I'm sure there are so many things that I have not done that are typical role model things within my own life. But when I fall down, I try to get back up and do a little bit better the next day.
And I think that makes the best kind of role model, right? Someone who is so genuine and that you can truly trust. So I really appreciate both of you do that. Before jumping into my last few questions, I just want to remind everybody who's tuning in with us that we actually have a live Q&A available. So if you have any questions for Laura and Vanessa, please just throw them in the chat. It should be on the sidebar of YouTube somewhere to pop them in there. But I'd love to talk about recent work now that you both have done that personally I'm a really big fan of. So Vanessa, this one's for you. So you started in the first ever, let me see if I can get this right, live virtual film premiere.
Yes.
You mentioned it earlier. This is the year with the executive producer, Selena Gomez.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that. I must know, did you guys have a virtual red carpet for that event?
Well, yes and no, because there was a pre-show and they showed pictures of us. The thing is, okay, so like obviously they raised money for a variety of different charities, and every ticket, a portion of the proceeds went to that, which was incredible. We made this film so long ago. It was supposed to come out in theaters. That wasn't going to happen. David Henry, who we all know from Wizards of Waverly Place, and obviously that's his connection with Selena, him and his family started a production company, and he directed and wrote this film, and his brother starred in it. They produced it together. And so David, to his credit, was like, we're going to do this. We're going to figure out how to directly get it into the consumer's hands, directly get it into the hands of the people who want to see it, directly get into the hands of the fans that have supported us for so long. And we all weren't in the same place because it was virtual, but we ended up doing a Q&A after, with Selena and the D'Amelio sisters hosted the Q&A. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, Jeff Garland's in the movie, and it really just kind of became Jeff Garland's Q&A, which I was happy about. That was entertainment for days. Basically, if you bought a ticket to the virtual premiere of This Is the Year, you also kind of got like a little bit of a Jeff Garland stand-up special. It was wonderful. But that was like the closest thing to, I guess, like the red carpet of it all, because when you're on a red carpet, right, you're like talking and taking pictures with the cast. And so I took a screen grab of all of us on Zoom.
I love that. And when you look back on the project, what was it like to work with Selena, and what was so special about this project? What stands out about it?
I mean, what stood out about it to me was the fact that, not unlike Laura and myself, David and Lorenzo Henry have been siblings in the industry for forever. We literally started all acting around the same age. We have a similar age difference as well. And they really took their careers into their own hands, knew that they wanted to create a project. It was really awesome to be a part of someone else in the industry who's been doing it since they were a little kid, who was carving out a space for themselves in the adult section of the industry as a content creator like myself. And, you know, speaking of role models, I think Selena Gomez is such an amazing, powerful woman who has, you know, broken the mold in this industry in so many ways, and has also been tremendously honest about any struggle that she has had and any success that she has had. So getting a chance to meet her and for her to attach her name to something, knowing that it carries so much clout, to help out someone that she loves and respects and has been friends with and colleagues with for so many years, those are the things of the industry that I love. I love, you know, the Seth Rogans and the Judd Apatows of the world who continuously work together over and over again. And I can only hope that we're carving out a little space for ourselves as young people within the industry, of people who are creating a kind of community to continue working with one another.
Amazing. I love that you're able to get that experience. I also have one more question for you on something you've worked on, which was Silicon Valley, which, you know, hits a little near and dear to Google's heart.
I'm getting my look from Silicon Valley right now. I didn't even realize that.
I'm curious, when you filmed it, did you learn anything about the tech industry that you didn't know before?
No, I didn't learn anything.
Did you trust anything?
No. There was no conversation of the tech industry.
Just you get the script, you act, and that's it.
Well, and we just, like, you know, listen to them improv over and over and over again. What's so great about that is the director of that episode is a woman named Jamie Babbitt, who's an incredible comedy director, who I worked with very briefly on Gilmore Girls, like very briefly. So it was really cool to kind of connect back with her and work with her again. Yeah, I mean, Silicon Valley is hilarious, and it was just, and also it was compact too. I shot that in just like a day or two, which was great.
Wow, efficient. I love it.
Love it.
So Laura, now I've got a question for you. You starred in Netflix's The Perfect Date, which, by the way, I was laughing throughout the entire movie. I think I'm going to watch it again tonight. That movie takes place in high school, and you went to actual high school while you were filming things on TV. What was that like to be around actual high school when you were also on TV?
Well, you know what? I'm so grateful with how it all played out, because basically I got to do my freshman year of high school, year 9, for anyone who's watching who isn't American. And I wasn't on Austin Alley yet. I obviously had been acting before, but it wasn't like people knew exactly what I was in. You know, I could go into school and I was just like, it's me, Laura. And I got to know everyone as just kind of a quote unquote, like, regular non-actor, singer person, and made friends and got close to teachers. Sorry, there's a siren like so close. So I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's so loud right now. So I'm really thankful that happened, because then when I got Austin and Alley, it was more like, oh, did you know Laura got this Disney show? Or, you know, Laura's on this Disney show, rather than, oh, that Disney girl goes to our high school. So that was like to me, it sounds kind of a silly thing to say, but it made all the difference because it wasn't something where people felt uncomfortable with me or felt shy or felt any of these kind of other things, starstruck. It was more like weird for them. Like they're like, this is so strange and I'm confused how you're on the show. One time I remember I was going up to the attendance office, who I loved the attendance officer. I can't remember what you would call it.
The attendance officer?
What?
The attendant, it sounds like a really authoritative figure.
I know, it sounds more intense. And this football player was up there, and he was like, "You're on Austin Alley, right?" And I was like, yes. He's like, "Oh, my little sister loves that show." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And, how old is she? And he's like, "Oh, she's 1." And I was like, "Oh, so your little sister loves the show. Sure, you 10th grade football player." So I had all those experiences were kind of the best to me, made me super happy. I missed a lot of school because I was doing Austin Alley, but it always worked out where I was absent quite a lot during the first semester. I was still doing my work, but I wasn't actually at school. And then second semester, I was always in school. So that was, again, kind of a best case scenario for me. It was awesome.
And speaking of the perfect date in the high school experience, you were literally going through that high school experience the first time that you worked with Noah Centineo on Austin.
Yes, exactly. Because Noah Centineo was on Austin Alley. And so we would actually, when he was on those episodes, we would do school together. One of my favorite memories that I brought up to Noah when we were doing the perfect date that he didn't remember. So I don't know what that says about him. I think it actually just makes him that much better and a better human being. Was my birthday was during one of the shows he was working on. And he found out like the day before he was there that my birthday was the next day. And so he and his mom, I also feel like this was very much his mom as well.
It was definitely his mom.
A human. Got me a necklace from Macy's like the next day. It was so sweet. And then I brought it up to Noah on the perfect day. And he's like, "We did? I don't remember that at all." I'm like, wow.
That is so sweet. It probably was his mom, but I also bet he had some say in it as well.
Totally.
I think he said, "Mom, it's her birthday. We should get her something." And his mom was like,
"I'll take care of it."
Laura, I also love that you mentioned it. It was more of Laura first and then acting. It wasn't like the Disney girl Laura,
Exactly. And I don't think that happens all the time. So it was just a circumstance I was really lucky and grateful that it happened.
Yeah. Well, we've known each other for about 40 minutes now, and you are Laura to me first. Just know that.
God,
yes. Last question I have for just you, which is, I read in an article that you sometimes still use a flip phone to detach from the endless scrolling of smartphones. Is that true? And do you still do it?
I do. Vanessa, how do you feel about it?
I could spend 40 minutes ranting about this. So
like no one in my family or anyone on my team appreciates it the way that everyone else in my life does.
Well, because it works out for Laura, right? Like Laura actually does get to disconnect. Like it actually accomplishes the goal that she wants, therefore making it harder for anyone who's trying to connect with her.
You're just like T9 texting over here and they're trying to get you to answer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can T9 text like no one's business. I am so faceted. It's crazy. But my phone, the storage fills up super quickly. So
What? A flip phone? The storage fills up super quick? That's crazy.
Mind blowing.
So when people text me, I will sometimes not get it for like weeks.
Therefore making it harder for everyone else.
I understand. My last main question is for the both of you, and it's probably something that's a little weird and you probably don't get it often, but I am just so curious. I saw that you were both credited on IMDb with additional voices in Finding Nemo. Who were you? Were you like the little school of fish?
We were, and we were the turtles.
No.
And the turtles, yeah.
Squirt?
Yeah, there's a bunch of turtles that jump on top of Marlin, and they like are all talking at the same time. And then there's like a little school of fish that comes by. So we were what you call extras in that movie.
Yes. I want to clarify it's important because when we first did it, a bunch of our friends were very confused. They're like, wait, are you the one that said it's a butt? And like, we're like, no, we were essentially extras, but in animated movies, extras are, I guess, your voice, right? You can't.
And it was us and a group of kids, one of whom is Daryl Sabara from Kids, who I worked with, I feel like 4 times after that experience. We worked together on a pilot. We worked together on The Closer. We worked together on, a show called Misguided that got canceled. And we ended up actually taking classes with my mom at her theater. So yay, Finding Mo for that.
It's a cool experience. Like it was, it's one of my favorite Pixar movies. So it's like really weird that, yes, it's so good. So it's really cool that we were in it. I mean,
I like that we knew about it because we were little kids at that time too. So like, we knew that there was a Pixar movie coming out about a fish. That's all we did.
Literally, we were in the know.
I love that. I mean, such an amazing Pixar movie. I still watch that one to this day. And also Finding Dory, I think they did an incredible job at, just saying.
I haven't seen Finding Dory yet, but I know everyone loves it. I know I will love it. I don't know I didn't see like the third Toy Story until like 3 years after, and it was everything I needed to be and more. I was sobbing on a plane.
I cried in that one too. It was very, very sad.
It's crazy.
Before jumping into the live questions from the audience, do you two want to share any upcoming projects?
Yeah, I mean, we're in heavy development on some things that we are producing right now that we unfortunately can't announce because this will be a great opportunity to do so.
And YouTube as well. Yes, Google.
Yes, we put our closed captioning version of it up on YouTube for all the deaf people who and hard of hearing community who need closed captions. So that was really awesome that feature was available because having worked on Switched at Birth, I know how important it is to have accessibility, especially when we're talking about such important content.
100%. So we're working on that right now. That should be out soon. I have randomly had one of the busiest months of my entire life. And I have a new movie out called War with Grandpa, which I filmed 3.5 years ago, and I'm so excited that it's out. It's a really sweet family comedy. I just released my second EP, You, woohoo! It's out, and I'm doing a virtual tour right now. I'm 3 shows down, 1 more show to go. Filming on Saturday. It's happening Saturday, and it's so much work, but I'm really excited for everyone to see it.
Amazing. I'm not going to lie. I've been working out to Boombox almost every day for the past week because it is so good.
It's a great song. I have multiple people telling me that constantly. I'm like,
my favorite new one for her though is Something to Believe In. She's had that song for a while and was waiting for the right time to like put it out there, and she reproduced it, and that one's mine.
Just got Katie and Ryan from Switched at Birth to do an ASL version of the chorus, which is beautiful.
Only for that song, not for any other song. Just
I know. I would take it. I was like, gorgeous.
Vanessa, I also love that you mentioned the closed captioning on YouTube. I mean, I personally think that's one of the coolest features that YouTube has. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. It genuinely has always been something so cool that they can literally take our speech and then put it on the screen for people who can't hear that well. I know that I have family members that benefit from that, and I'm like, that's genius. And then it just goes to show how I think personally great of a company Google and YouTube really are.
Being such a large company, you guys have such an impact in the world. I'm talking to the Google logo that I'm looking at right now, like it can hear me. But yes, I mean, talking about accessibility in regards to YouTube, that's not something I ever even thought about before Switched at Birth. And then having worked with so many deaf and hard of hearing performers who spoke up about like accessibility needs to be like a norm, like we need to be talking about it and making sure that people who have hearing ailments can actually have access to the same content that we all have. And so that closed captioning ability on YouTube is really, really amazing.
Love it. Let's jump into live Q&A. I think the question should pop up on our screen in a moment. Here we go. We got one from Ricardo. So he says, my question is, what responsibility do you believe folks in the entertainment industry have to use their platform and voice to speak about social justice issues affecting us today?
I don't know if it's the responsibility of the entertainment industry as much as it's the responsibility of us as human beings. And it's interesting because I think the entertainment industry gets a lot of flack where people are like, oh, these celebrities talking about social issues from their grand pedestal and all that stuff. And so that makes a lot of celebrities not want to speak out about things. But ultimately, I'm such a big believer in, and I think I said it earlier in this talk, is once you have the knowledge, spread that knowledge. Don't spread misinformation, spread the things that you have been educated about, that you've done research about, the things that are important to you that you believe we need to be speaking about. And like I said, Laura and I are really lucky that we have a platform, and we are so happy that we can use it to that. But we're also very conscious. We don't use the platform for anything that we haven't done a thorough amount of research on, and that we truly, truly believe in. And I believe that is our responsibility, is to make sure we are spreading things that are accurate to the best of our ability to know so. But for anyone who doesn't have, let's say, a platform that's so large, that doesn't matter. It's a trickle effect. One person talking about something, spreading it to someone that's a friend, just spreads it to another friend. That's how we create real change in the world and create real awareness.
Yeah. I think Vanessa just said a lot of things that I agree with so much. I feel like for me, as someone in the entertainment industry and someone as just a human being, I feel like I have 100% responsibility to speak about so many different social issues happening. But there's times when I feel like I don't necessarily have the knowledge or education to speak about this from a position that is going to inform correctly everyone. But that, for me, it puts me kind of in a weird position, because there's so many things I care about so much. There's so many human rights issue and social issues, especially now that I feel like I've become more aware of, that I'm really passionate about. But I'm always very choosy about making sure I have the amount of information that I can give to teach people who follow me or who come across my account. But it's tough. There are so many things out there. There are so many really, really important issues. So like Vanessa said, I really encourage just anyone and everyone, if you have the research and you have the information and you have the knowledge, please spread it. I can't tell you how many of my fans are sometimes the ones that inform me about some things that are happening. And I am so grateful and thankful for them, and thankful for the dialogue and for the ability of learning about all these different issues that we need to learn about and learn more about and say more things about. It's just, I think, part of the social media culture of really there's this sense of like global justice across the landscape of social media from a global standpoint, that I think is a really beautiful thing to come from social media. And I think it's just, for me, a matter of making sure I'm as informed as possible and giving the facts and giving the information as much as I possibly can.
Because, by the way, just because you have a platform doesn't mean people are going to listen to you. But you don't say things because you're expecting people to listen to you. You say things because it's the right thing to do.
Totally.
Absolutely. So wise of you both. Just speak up, and I love it.
Yeah, I wish I knew more things, to be honest. I'm still going to school. I will graduate when I'm like 37, but I love being able to go to school and just to learn more, because I think as human beings, we should just be constantly challenging ourselves and learning and having these discussions.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn. All right. Do we have another question from the audience? We have one from Maya. As actors gain more success, they generally can be more selective in their career choices. Has that been your experience? What goes into your decisions to sign onto or avoid certain projects?
This is an interesting question, because there are so many factors at play with career decisions, right? There's advice from your agent, advice from your managers, things that you connect to, where you are financially in your life that would maybe make you consider a job that you wouldn't necessarily be considering. But also the biggest factor is, does the industry want to hire you? And this is a very fickle industry that goes in and out of that. I think for Laura and myself, and I don't want to speak too much for Laura, but I think she agrees with me in this sense too, is obviously you have to like the project. But there are so many projects that I've done that I think people would have belittled and told me not to do because I was at a certain point. And oftentimes those projects have led to grander opportunities. and have led to also more knowledge and education and sometimes life-changing experiences and making connections with people who I work with later down the line. I don't think you ever know where something's going to take you. So I urge people when they are, thinking about being selective about things is really, weighing the pros and cons of what you are going to get out of something. And if the answer is like, I wouldn't do this because I'm above this, that's wrong. Do it then, because something will come out of that later on that you don't even realize is a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's a really complicated question because like Vanessa said, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It depends. It depends the project, I guess, because sometimes I am, and it depends where I'm at in my career. And I say that talking about it as more cyclical rather than like exponential, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that was totally.
No, because
but I think people think of entertainment careers as something like this, right? Or maybe this or peaking or whatever, but it's really kind of not. It's obviously you are maybe growing a little bit, but there's a lot of cycles that come with it. There's a lot of cyclical action, if I may, of all of us in the entertainment industry, maybe at different levels, but go through highs and lows, like on a constant basis. Literally, like could be like every year, could be every 2 years, every 3 years, every 6 months. It depends. Like you can be at an amazing high, both financially and creatively, at one point, and then a really low on like the next year, creatively and financially, and then again high. Like it goes in so many different kind of ways. So when I'm picking projects, that's obviously always kind of in my foreground of thinking, or actually my background of thinking, right? I find that I can be quite selective on certain things, but I really do always look at, okay, what did I just do? What did I just do in acting? What did I just do not even in acting? What am I looking for right now in this time of my life? And so if that means I'm going for a project that is like lighter and more family drawn, then I'm all for that. If that means going for something that's like a little bit darker, then I'm going for that. If it's like going for something that's a little sassier, The Perfect Date, I really look at with such love because it was this film that can kind of be for the whole family, but it was a little more PG-13 rom-com that I grew up with and absolutely like loved watching as a teenager. So I think it is so dependent on so many factors in the moment when I'm thinking about different projects. But it also depends if I'm like, oh, I really just want to focus on music right now. So there's a lot of different things that go into it for sure.
Oh yeah, and it sounds like it all goes back to just the education piece you were talking about earlier. Where do I want to grow? Where do I want to learn more?
Totally.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm. And then you could be like, all right, I'm ready to go after that opportunity. And then they could be like, never mind, we're not hiring you.
True.
All right, I think we have another question from the audience. This one is from Stoyan. When you were younger, did you ever consider not going into acting? Was there ever a different path you considered?
I never didn't consider going into acting. I always knew I wanted to do more than just acting, but from the time I was 6, I knew I wanted to do this. And again, you're 6, so you don't really like understand that you're making a career decision. I just knew I wanted to act. And that was always something for me. But I when I was in elementary school, I was like, I'll probably just do it till I'm 18 and then go to law school. And then maybe be a fashion designer. And that was my elementary school days of thinking of that. But as I got older, I realized in that world of like, okay, I don't just want to be a performer, but I love this industry. I knew I wanted to get into writing. I want to get into directing. And the first step to that was for us to actually get a project that we produced off the ground.
Yeah, I think there are, like Vanessa, and I think it's not very different from most kids. There's a level where you want to do everything. And by the way, hairdresser is always one of the things. I'm not sure why, but when you're 7, you're like, I want to be lawyer, president, doctor, and a hairdresser. It always is. But I think there were moments where I was kind of confused and not sure 100% what I wanted to, because I had so many interests. I loved music so much, and I loved acting so much. I couldn't imagine my life without acting. But I, was heavily considered going to a 4-year college, which I knew was really,
which by the way, you are doing.
Yeah, I'm doing it over like a 12-year period. But I was heavily considered like going to a college where, I'm very lucky the college I go to works with me and works with a lot of different people. But I was considering going to colleges that I don't think would have. And I knew that was going to drastically affect my acting career and my music career. That was just kind of beginning when I was making that decision. So, I think when I was in middle school, I had kind of different thoughts of what else did I want to do. Sometimes people ask me if I wasn't an actress or a singer, what would I do? And I always say teacher. Like that was something that I was super interested in. But I just truly had so many moments when I imagined acting and music and entertainment in general just not in my life. And I felt so sad by that. And maybe that's because I hate change. Maybe that's because of a lot of reasons. But it was just something that I couldn't imagine my life without. And it brought me so much sadness thinking of my life without it. So I guess it's hard to 100% say like yes or no. There's so many kind of different thoughts growing up with it. But I think overall acting was always kind of a part of the situation with me. And I knew that very much when I was like in middle school into high school.
I mean, personally, I'm really glad you both are within the entertainment realm because I get entertainment out of it. So thank you both for being there. I'm glad you did not take the other paths. Funny you mentioned hairstyling. My mom is actually a hairstylist. So I guess you pursued that 7-year-old dream.
It's just, there's something about you're in a salon when you're like young and you're like, this is the coolest job ever. I don't know. And it is. It's a really cool job. A lot of very special people to be our hairstylists.
Well, I did my father's hair more than once. I was a small child, and he let me.
I think we have time for one more question. This one is from Lauren, and she's asking, what are each of your dream roles?
That's so hard. I always say like a really like crazy over the top villain character, which I got to do a little bit in a gem of a film called Daphne and Velma. Got to be the Scooby-Doo villain in that one. But I think those are like really fun. Like the Ursulas of the world, like roles like that, I think would just be nonstop fun.
I feel like we're kind of working on my dream role right now for one of the projects that we have in development that is not going to be ready for like years. But I just love musicals, so I'm always looking for like a musical to do.
That's a hint.
I guess I'm not going to give away what we're working on. But I wish I was better at accents because I would love to be English. Just like some sort of English period piece. But I'm going to be honest, I'm terrible at accents, so I don't even know if I would pursue that because
what are you talking about, Laura? You could do an English accent right now and show everyone how great you are at it.
Don't do this for me. Don't do this. We both know the truth. Vanessa's great at accents. So maybe she'll get that and I'll live vicariously through her.
I might be great at accents, but I can't carry a tune. So she got that one.
Someday when we're all back in the office, we'll definitely have you at Google and we'll have you do some accents for us all. How's that? We'll give you some time to prepare.
Wonderful. You opened this door. You said it.
Hey, I'm going to hold you to it. Well, Laura, Vanessa, you both have been so great. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thank you, sir.
And of course. And I also want to thank our audience who's tuning in with us on YouTube. We really appreciate you all being with us. And also to the Toxic Google team for facilitating this event, putting on all the behind the scene work. It means a lot. And we really hope that everybody got something out of it. So again, Laura and Vanessa, thank you from both myself and Google. We wish you all the best in everything that you do.
Thank you, everyone who watched, and thank you, Google, for having us.
Thank you. Bye.